it's me, Daniel. In the response to some of my videos, I had a few comments from people in the videos or in real life where they said like they liked my videos but they don't know how to play chess. Right? So I thought I would do this short video to explain the names of the pieces and also how they move. Okay. So the first one here, this is the pawn. Okay. You've got 8 pawns in a row. And how the pawns move is you can either move them 1 square at a time, or for the first move you can move it 2 squares. And when you're playing a game, a lot of times you need to capture the opposing piece, and how the pawn captures is diagonally. So if a pawn is directly in front of the pawn or a piece, okay, the pawn is stuck, it cannot move further. Okay, so that's it for the pawn. Next one is the rook. Okay. The rook is simple, right? Basically a rook can move forwards or backwards. Yes, it's got a reverse gear. It can move left or right as well. Okay. It can move across the whole board as long as it's not blocked. So if, for example, you've got a pawn here in the middle, right, the rook can only move up to here. It cannot jump across the pawn. And the next one here is the knight. Okay, the knight basically moves in an L shape. So one simple way is you could say 1, 2, and then left, or 1, 2, and then right. Okay, so I can show you here in the middle of the board. So let's say I want to move leftwards. So you go like 1, 2, and then 1. Okay, so in an L shape. That's the knight. Next one is the bishop. Fun fact, the bishop used to be a war elephant. Right? So chess was originally from the Middle East, or India actually, and then it moved on to the Middle East, and then from Middle East to Europe. And since they still don't have war elephants, but they didn't have war elephants like 500 years ago in Europe as well. So what they did was they changed the war elephant to something that had power. So in those days, religion and politics went sort of side by side, right? And bishops in the church had a lot of power. So the war elephant became a bishop. Okay. And how bishops move? Bishops, they move diagonally. Right, so here it's on a white square, so it can move diagonally along the white squares. Right, and the same with the rook. If it's blocked by a pawn or another piece, it cannot jump over it. Okay, unlike the knight. Okay, and then next you've got the king, and the king here is the most important piece. It can move only 1 step in any direction. So the 3 squares in front, the 3 squares at the back, left or right, but only 1 square at a time. But why then is it the most important piece? Because if your king gets taken by the opposing player, you lose the game. Okay, and next we've got the queen. Another fun fact, the queen originally was like a chancellor or counselor, right? And when it came to Europe, it became the queen. And the queen originally, it could move only 1 or 2 steps diagonally, right? But it changed over time around 1500s in Spain. So possibly because at that time Spain had some very strong queens. For example, Isabella I from Castile. So basically the queen can move in a mixture of a rook, so it can move forwards, backwards, left or right. It can also move diagonally like a bishop. So it's like a combo, rook and bishop. So in one sense, the queen is the most powerful piece in terms of its movement, right? But in terms of importance, it's second to the king, because if you lose your king, you lose the game. Okay. So you've heard me talk about capturing the king. So the king, for example, okay, I'll show you a simple one. Okay, the king is considered checkmated if it's in check, right? So when a piece threatens the king and it cannot move. So an example is this. You can see here, you've got the queen here checking the black king, and the black king cannot move anywhere, neither can it use any of its pieces to block the check. And this is what we call checkmate. And we've got two special moves in chess. One is what we call castling. So let's say if all the pieces here are gone, only the king and the rooks are here, and there's nothing between the king and the rook, you can move the king 1, 2, and then you move the rook to its side. This is what we call castling. It's generally considered safer for the king to be at the side of the board. So in most games, you'll find that either white or black or both players, they castle their king. Okay. You can do this here. This is what we call the queen side. You can also do it here on the king side. Okay. And the last special move is what we call en passant, which is, it's from French. Okay. So basically the idea is, let's say you've got an opposing pawn here and you don't want to move your pawn one step. Why? Because then your opponent can take your pawn. So what do? We go like, I'll go 2 steps. So 1, 2. This way, the black pawn cannot take the white pawn. Right? Wrong. Okay. So for one move only, right? If white does this, where it moves its pawn up 2 steps, right next to the black pawn like this, for one move, black has the choice of taking the white pawn like this, as if the white pawn had moved only 1 square. And this is what we call en passant. It's not seen very regularly in games, but it does happen, and it can have a very interesting tactical implications when a player does that. Okay, so today we've looked at the names of the pieces and how they move. And if you would like any other videos on how to play chess, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you. Bye.